We are the membrane makers, and it is our job to construct and maintain the structure of the cell membrane.
The first step in building a cell membrane is the phospholipid heads. The phospholipid heads form an outer layer of the bilayer. Because the phospholipid heads contain a phosphate group, it is hydrophilic. Hydrophilic is a fancy term for saying it has affinity water or water-loving.
The next step is we stick the phospholipid tails to the heads. The phospholipid tails point inwards onto the bilayer. These tails are the nonpolar end, meaning they are hydrophobic. Hydrophobic means they fear water or water repelling.
Together, the head and tail form a phospholipid. A phospholipid is any lipid or fat that contains a phosphate group. Phospholipids are also amphiphatic, meaning one of their two ends is polar while the other is non-polar.
Because the cell membrane is made of two layers of phospholipids, it is often referred to as the phospholipid bilayer. The phospholipid bilayer serves to regulate the exchange of molecules between cells. The bilayer is comprised of phospholipids, proteins, and carbohydrates. One of the main features is its permeability.
After the phospholipids are constructed, we need to stick some integral proteins in there. Integral proteins are proteins permanently embedded in the cell membrane. Their primary function is to create channels through the cell, allowing solutes to be transported through. Transmembrane proteins are an example of an integral protein whose function is to control the signal transmission, transport nutrients, and also energy conversion.
Another type of protein that we built into the cell membrane is peripheral proteins. Peripheral proteins are proteins that attach themselves to the bilayer temporarily. Their main function is to provide structure, aid in communication, manage enzymes, and control molecule transfer.
Cholesterol is the next step in building the membrane. Cholesterol mainly serves to improve the permeability barrier properties of the phospholipid bilayer.
The final component of the cell membrane is the glycoproteins. A glycoprotein is a class of proteins with a carbohydrate group attached to the polypeptide chain. In the cell membrane, glycoproteins' primary function is cell-to-cell communication. This is important because it helps identify foreign cells in the body and if cells are safe. They also aid in cell adhesion.
This extraordinary cell membrane has a wide range of functions vital to a cell's overall function. One of these functions is to act as a junction between cells. These junctions adhere to neighboring cells together. They are made up of complex, multi-protein structures that connect the membranes of each cell.
Another important component of the function of the membrane is enzymes. Enzymes are vital to how the membrane functions as they speed up the reactions that take place throughout the membrane. Facilitated diffusion or any active transport requires enzymes in order to react in a proper way and at the proper speed.
Probably the most important function of the membrane is transport, to regulate what comes in and out of the cell. The membrane completes this function through many kinds of transport: osmosis, diffusion, facilitated diffusion, endo and exocytosis. All these functions made by the membrane are parts of this transport.
Recognition is another important function of the cell membrane. The membrane has to recognize what should be taken in and what should not be let into the cell. The glycoproteins act as the identification system of the membrane and recognize what materials should be let in and what foreign bodies should not be let through the membrane.
Another function of the cell membrane is anchorage. Anchorage is when a cell membrane attaches to the cytoskeleton to the external membrane of another cell through the membrane proteins. This ensures that cells hold the position and also hold their own structure and shape.
The final function of the cell membrane is signal transduction, which is the transmission of molecular signals from the outside of the cell to its inside. Cell surface receptors ensure that the signals are transmitted effectively in order to ensure that they reach as far as they need to.
Thank you for coming to help build a membrane with us. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. Thank you.